worker at the lowest level of the factory workers.
And why did you feel that you needed to hide this, even amongst left intellectuals?
This I don't know. And because I would say the power of social violence is so great, so strong, that you feel compelled, because you now, afterwards, I was ashamed of having been ashamed of my family and of my social milieu. But I don't understand why it was so necessary for me to hide my social, from which social extraction I came. And it's very strange, because you mentioned some words that which are social markers. In my last book, which has been published in May a few months ago, which is about my mother, who died a few years ago, and there was a chapter on language. I say the death of my mother introduced in my life complete erasure of the way she was speaking. She was the last person who, in my surroundings, used to speak with these words, with this way of speaking, her vocabulary, her accent, and it's after her death, I completely cut from my past, this past, which she was the only one. I will never, except if I go to France, but I will. When I was on the phone with my mother, her way of speaking was a kind of. It was very strange. Really, I have to be very cautious not to use some words which she would have considered that kind of offensive to her, because you speak like a book, I don't understand what you say, you don't speak to me like that, because you know I don't, I'm not, I did not, as you know that I cannot understand philosophy, or even if I was not talking about philosophy, and this. My past, her death is also the death of my past, and my last link with this past. My mother, the link was through the way she spoke. She kept on speaking all her life, and which was the way I used to speak when I was a child, when I was a teenager.
So you also lost a part of your own
of my own past. Yeah. Yes, she was the last link with my own past, and I can say it's kind of to have to change your language, not to learn a foreign language, but to learn another social language, is a kind of exile. You feel the wonderful Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish, great Palestinian poet. I recommend you to read him. It's a good moment to read Palestinian poetry, and this great Palestinian poets. There are multiple forms of exile. There are you have to leave your country, but you may also feel exile because in your mind, because you don't belong to the place in which you are located, the people with whom you are living. So. Exile is like exactly like shame. Exile is a very, very complex concept, and I felt exile, and then I have to to step by step, to learn how to belong, to learn to go to the movie theater, then to read the book you have to read to belong. And I wanted to go to the opera, to love Wagner and Richard Strauss, to read Proust, and so on. So now, what remains of my past, this past? I don't know, because I go to the opera. Obviously, my parents did not go. I go to concert hall. I go socialize with my friends in cafes, in restaurants. Kind of Sartre-Beauvoirian way of life, and so on, which was a fantasy for me when I was an adolescent, a teenager. I wanted to go to Paris to not only to live my gay life, freedom, a gay life, but also to become an intellectual, as you can see them described in Simone de Beauvoir memoir. And this memoir by Simone de Beauvoir probably been one of the most influential book I read in my life. Not maybe because of the content, but because the description, the model she was describing gave me the desire to be like the people she was describing.
I would like to ask one
Sorry,
further question. But also on the people you, in a way, left behind when you went into exile. Because one of the things that you write about also in your book, Returning to Reims, is how the people you left behind, so let's say the traditional industrial working class, was in a way seduced by the far right, right? So that milieu that you came from, which used to vote even for the Communist Party, yeah. Now en masse were voting for Le Pen, and I think this is something that we see all over Europe, if not the world. Also today in the Netherlands, there's a serious chance that tomorrow we will be waking up in Wilders 1
as everywhere,
as a premier. How do you explain that, or what is the how do you analyze that shift?
You know, it was one of the starting point of the idea of writing a book, which became Retour à Reims, Terror nach Reims. Sorry for the accent. When I was a child, even a teenager, my parents, my family, my uncles, aunts, everybody in my family used to vote for the Communist Party at a time where the Communist Party won 25% in the election year after year. It was not even the Communist Party. They did not say the Communist Party. They said the party. They were inscribed in that left-wing culture. What the leaders of the party said, it was true, and you cannot criticize them. What they said was what has to be said. So I left my parents. I did not talk to them very often. I did not want to see them anymore, and to invent myself as what I became. And from time to time, I gave a call to my mother. And once we were on the phone, and I realized that she had voted for Jean-Marie Le Pen, the leader of the horrible leader of the National Front, the far right wing. And I told them, Maman, how is it possible? How is it possible that you vote for that horrible guy? I wanted to say, I disagree. You disagree with what? To the situation. But do you realize that you did vote for a candidate who opposed the right to abort for women? I say, oh, it's not for that I voted for him. Yeah, but I know that you had an abortion and you would have been sent to jail by this guy. So how can you vote for someone who is so hostile to your own life? And it was impossible to have a discussion. I wanted to say, I'm angry that I do not accept the situation which is made to people like me, like us. The us of the working class is something very important. And I realized that it was not only my mother. And when I wrote Retour à Reims, Returning to Reims, it was not when I described the beginning of that process, the working class, moving from the left, and especially from the Communist Party to the far right wing, it was because it's not because I am a prophet. It's because I saw that happening in my own family. Those people in statistics, how many people voted for the Communist Party, it was not statistic for me. It was my mother on the phone, and so I explained that in Retour à Reims. So many people deny that as a political scientist. No, you're wrong. It's very it's only some, and then whole regions, strongholds, which used to be the strongholds of the Communist Party, where the candidates of the Communist Party were elected on the first one with more than 50% on the first one of the election, are now the strongholds of the National Front. So it's exactly what happened is exactly what I was describing. I was describing the beginning of that process in Retour à Reims. And so I can say it was prophetic to describe that. The explanation is, the explanation I gave in Retour à Reims is when the party, the Communist Party collapsed completely because of the collapse of the Soviet Union, the disappearance of Marxism. And so my parents could have voted for a Socialist Party, for other left-wing party. Why is it that they could not consider themselves anymore as being on the left? And because the left betrayed them, you know, and of course, when a party by which you felt represented did not represent you anymore in the political sphere, it's simply as that, you stopped to vote for them and you vote for another party. And as a Socialist Party and the official left wing in France started, there is no such thing as social classes. We have to get rid of the idea of social determinism. Everybody is an individual who has his own autonomy, his own possibilities, which means that if you are not successful in your life, it means that it's your responsibility. Mm-hmm. And this is the idea of autonomy is linked to the idea of responsibility, your own responsibility. All this right-wing way of thinking, this had become the way, the thought of the left wing. Mm-hmm. The intellectual linked to the Socialist Party destroyed completely all the left-wing thought by destroying the idea. They could have rethought the idea of class, but they said there is no such thing as class, as social class, which means we cannot accept anymore social movements, strikes, demonstrations, and we saw recently how the social movements were welcomed in France by riot police, mutilations, people losing their eyes, by the repression led by Emmanuel Macron, this wonderful liberal centrist who mutilated hundreds of demonstrators, and who was the Minister of Economy of the socialist government of François Hollande, the socialist president. So, of course, you can understand that people, when they demonstrate in the street for their life, for their salaries, for their rights, and when they are repressed so violently by people who were supposedly on the left, of course, I understand very well. You cannot vote for anybody who will represent you on the left. So what do? You vote for the far right, because the far right say we are the party of the people, which defend the interest of the people. When I was a child, in my family, we the workers, we the working class, as opposed to them, the bosses, the oppressors, the exploiters. It has been transformed. Still, we the workers, we the working class, versus them, the immigrants, immigrants who are welcome in our countries by the bourgeois, the system, the elites, and so this far right-wing discourse is won in the working class, and now you can see in the polls, more than 50% of the workers, the factory workers, vote for the National Front, which is unbelievable, but which is unfortunately true.
Yeah. So I would like to now shift to that second block, talking about education and culture. And again, I want to do a short poll. First of all, who in the audience is currently studying or has studied at university? That's a wide majority. Who has at least one parent that went to university? Who has ever read a novel by Annie Arnaud? Who has ever read a novel by Marcel Proust? It's a bit of a trick question because he only wrote one novel, of course. Who read it in French? Okay, yeah, those are the real people with cultural capital here in the room.
I see.
No, because I want to talk a little bit about education, and I'm going to quote from your latest book, The Verdict of Society, and so this is the English translation of the Dutch translation, so I hope that you still recognize your own words, because my French is not so good, unfortunately. And I quote, "The function of the educational system seems to be to keep in place the classes as they are, or rather, to keep in place the distinction between the classes as they develop," end quote. And when I read that quote, it quite struck me, because it seems quite counterintuitive, or at least at odds with the way that we are on an everyday basis are talking about education as rather this kind of social, as a kind of engine of social mobility, right? Education is the way for people to move in between classes. So could you perhaps elaborate a bit on why you think that, let's say, that dominant narrative about education is wrong, or at least needs to be nuanced?
You know, it's not counterintuitive. It's opposed at the kind of discourse that is widely circulated. But if you look around you, you can see that it is perfectly obvious. I'm very... When my book was published in different countries, I realized that all the countries I went to talk about this book, there was someone in the audience saying, what you said is what you write in your book is true for France, but it's not true in our country. I even been said that in Great Britain. In Great Britain, which is one of the most class-based society, you take the train to the north and you see social classes in front of your eyes, in front of you, through the window. You see, when you leave London, the city centre, and you take the train to the north, you go to Glasgow, it's a society so violently divided into different classes, with the level of the differences so obvious, so incredible, that you cannot understand how people can say it's not true in our country. And I wonder what is this? It's like an accusation. Your society is a class society, but mine too, and it's not my fault. I'm a product of that. I'm a child of this class society, and I try my best to fight in this class society, not with the illusion I will transform it, but with the idea that I can be on the side of the precarized people, despised people, unemployed people, precarious people, and so on. To answer your question about education, it's obvious that nothing has changed from the moment in which my parents were in the school system. They had to leave when they were 13, after primary education, my mother to be a housemaid, and my father to he entered the factory at 13. Because it was what people do at that time when they were working class. Of course, it's not 13 now, it's 16, but the structure of the class society is exactly the same. The children of the working class, the children of the migrants, the children of the precarious people who are in kind of precarious jobs are eliminated from the school system. And we have to get rid of the idea that the mythology of meritocracy. There is no such thing as meritocracy. I don't deny that there is a social mobility. Of course, I'm an example that there can be social mobility. Edouard Louis is another example. But
these are the exceptions.
But we are exception in the statistics, which show all the statistics show that there is the word by Pierre Bourdieu, the reproduction of the class, of the structure of the class society through the school system, and with the help of the school system. Because if you don't speak, I was talking about the language. If you don't speak if you speak the language of I used to speak when I was a child, you cannot survive in the higher education if you don't change your way of speaking, of course. And some can do. I did for a reason I mentioned before. Some cannot do, of course. And there is an elimination of the. I was infuriated when I read Thomas Piketty's book Capital in the 21st century, and because there are inequalities. But I'm not against inequalities. Some are just and fair and grounded on work and on merit. And I wrote a piece in which I criticized him, saying I would like him to tell exactly this sentence to the woman who clean his office every day in the morning before he arrives, or to the technician who changes the lights when they don't work, etc. Does he think that they don't work or they don't merit to be, because they don't have merit that they do that? And the methodology of meritocracy is at the very basis of a book on capital, in which there is no capitalism, there is no exploitation, there is no simply inequality because people have money. Some inherit this money. But there is exploitation, and I saw that exploitation in my life. I saw the body of my mother destroyed because she was, after being a cleaning maid she worked during nearly 20 years in a factory, and the kind of work is destroying for the bodies, for the shoulders, the hands, the everything. And she died. She was not able to walk anymore because her body had been completely destroyed by her life in a factory. And how can we think that's because she did not work enough, or she lacks of merit? And I remember a conversation. We saw a program where Thomas Piketty was talking, and Edouard Louis told me, I feel insulted by this guy. And
by Piketty.
By Piketty, yes. And this is what the social democrat way of thinking says in merit, work, and some people can. You mentioned Proust and Oranier. No, the capital is not only the economic capital, it's also the cultural capital. If you are ready,
could I ask you one further thing about that? Because indeed, the theme of this evening is also beyond distinction, which is obviously the reference to Bourdieu's book, in which he mentions art and culture as these kinds of markers of class distinction. And I was wondering, the book is, of course, already more than 40 years old. To what extent this is still true to the same extent, in that sense that I was thinking, well, now you have these kinds of, let's say, cultural omnivores. You can read Proust in the morning and listen to the Foo Fighters in the afternoon and go to a stand-up comedian in the evening. We even had a minister of culture whose favorite band was Metallica. So to what extent is art and culture still this thing that you can show off with, so to say?
You say that some people can read Proust in the morning and listen to hard rock in the evening. Maybe some do that, but there are some people who listen to hard rock in the evening but are not able to read Proust in the morning or at any other time in the day, during the day, because it's not that it very often in the literary milieu. Oh, it's not that hard to read Proust, you have to take your time. But people don't have access to that. They don't know about who Proust is. They don't feel like reading books because they have not been socialized in their childhood as children who will become people who read books. And so the idea of the omnivore culture, I think does not. That doesn't mean that distinction does not exist anymore. On the contrary, I would say it's that today, in the most prestigious high school or higher education institution in France, it's more socially restrictive than it was when Bourdieu published, because Bourdieu published that, and the bourgeoisie learned through Bourdieu all these strategies of distinction, and
a handbook became a handbook for social distinction.
They knew before. They know how to defend their own privileges. For example, if you say today, a lot of children from the working class go to the university. It's true. But in France, the children of the bourgeoisie don't go anymore to the university. They go to what we call les grandes écoles, which are institutions in which you can enter through a concours, and you have to, and the access to this grande école, not private institution, public institution, the access to this grandes écoles, École Normale Supérieure, for example, is more socially restrictive than it was 40, 50, 60 years ago. And so the importance of the cultural capital, which means that when you were a child, your parents took you to the museum, told you to read this or this book, took you to the theater, to the concert hall. This is very strange. A friend of mine who worked at the opera, at the Paris Opera, told me recently that as they wanted to widen the audience of the opera and to attract a younger audience, younger people to the performances, they decided to, for every show, to organize what they call an avant-première jeune, the avant-première for young people, under 28 years old. And the price of the tickets is 10 euros to attend a performance at the Paris Opera, even at the best seats, which are 200 euros on a regular basis. This friend told me this is very strange because these avant-premières for young people are more socially restrictive than the regular performances, because only the children of the bourgeoisie know about that, feel like going to attend a performance at the opera. So you don't have not one child of the working class, child of the middle class. You have only the children of the upper class. And which means it's not a question of money. It's a question of cultural capital, and so the culture of your family, which you inherit not only the money from your family, but you inherit also before the money, you inherit the culture and the desire to go to the opera house, to the concert, to the theater, to the movie theater, and so on.
Yeah. So now, in the final part, I would actually like to look to the kind of flip side of the coin, how art and culture would be able to address or critique class distinctions. First, another round of questions for the audience. Who saw the movie Parasite? Yes. Who saw the movie Sorry We Missed You by Ken Loach? Who saw the series The White Lotus? Succession? Yeah. Who would consider themselves an anti-capitalist? Okay, well, that's a good score, I think. So, indeed, now to go to that, let's say, that flip side, and I mentioned these different movies. We can also think of Triangle of Sadness, Get Out. There seems to be this kind of almost surge of a critique of capitalism, not only in let's say, literature such as of your books, but also your friend Édouard Louis and Annie Ernaux, but also indeed in popular culture. What do you make of this? Is this indeed telling of a kind of new class consciousness, or is it rather a kind of class washing as a kind of equivalent of greenwashing?
I wouldn't say class washing. It's a kind of class consciousness, and to try to the notion of class have been completely erased from the public discussion, from the intellectual field, from the cultural field for so many years that for when Annie Ernaux, when Édouard Louis wrote about social classes, suddenly people realized that we live in a class-based society in which the structure of class is still so strong and so violent. And so we have readers. But I know that my readers, some of them maybe, I know that my readers are not working class readers. And I admire Ken Loach cinema, of course, and Sorry We Missed You is a wonderful movie. For those who did not see it, it's a kind of a man whose job is to deliver for Amazon the parcels, and the woman is a nurse aide in the house of the elderly who cannot help themselves. And it's wonderful to describe the new working class, not anymore in factories, but in Amazon warehouses. But the film is not very optimistic. It's very sad, the situation of this man. Their love, their couple, is completely destroyed by the harshness of their jobs and the tiredness of the job. The movie is really distressing, and so if I go to see that, I feel infuriated. When I see that, I feel like going to a demonstration to help these people to get better conditions of work, better salaries, and so on. But the previous film by Ken Loach, Daniel Blake, was also a wonderful movie, but also very despairing. The guy died because of the surveillance of the system, because he is unemployed and cannot find a work, and he is blamed because he cannot find a work in Great Britain, and where so many people are unemployed. And these movies raise, of course, the level of consciousness of the anti-capitalist and anti-neoliberalism. But I'm afraid that people like you, people like me, people like you will like this movie. Maybe some working class people see it when it's on TV, but I'm sure that they are not that widely circulated. When Retour à Reims was adapted on stage in Berlin by the director of the Schaubühne, the theater in Berlin, Thomas Ostermeyer, I went there to attend some rehearsals, and he asked me, "Oh, can we do a dialogue for the program, for the premiere? A dialogue we will publish in the program." One of his questions during this dialogue: "How can we do to have working class people on stage and to have working class people in the audience?" And I told him, "I'm afraid that it will be easier to have working class people on stage because it's up to you to invite them, to choose actors and actresses from working class extraction, than to have working class people in the audience, because you cannot change the structure of our society, of the education, of the school system, of the cultural, the functioning of the cultural system, which is the privilege of educated people. So distinction here is still here, and this maybe can lead us to the first question, back to the first question about politics. The map in France, I was struck by, I don't remember which newspaper, published without making the link between the two. One day was the level of education in France, and the lowest, how long people remain in the school system. And you have the north of France and some parts of the east. It was completely black, which means people leave or are expelled from the school system very, very early. They don't have any degree. And a few days later, a map, vote for the National Front. And it was exactly the same map. This was striking. How can they publish these two maps without linking the first one to the other one? People who cannot have access to education, which means to jobs, to culture, to leisures, to travels abroad, and so on, to holidays. Edouard Louis took his mother to Hamburg to attend an adaptation of his book Combat et métamorphose d'une femme. It has been translated into Dutch, I don't know, about her mother. He took her mother to a performance. Her mother was very happy. It was last year, the first time she traveled abroad. And the first time she fly to go somewhere. She had never been to an airport, to an hotel. She never crossed the border. And so you can understand that these are the same people, deprived from everything, who votes for the National Front. So the class-based society, which means school, culture, education, leisure, holidays, travels, and enjoyment of life on a daily basis. Some people are deprived of that, and they don't have money, they work hard, sorry we missed you. You can see what kind of work people do. And of course, they are led to vote for the National Front, and the only possibility to oppose that, to resist that, is to organize associations, trade unions, who try to do their best to oppose this class violence.
Would there be any role for art and culture in that struggle?
Yes, of course. Art is very important, and the black African-American intellectual Angela Davis was in Paris a few days ago, and she said, for the anti-racist movement, art, music, culture have been so important, so influential, and through art, painting, music, the black consciousness, the anti-racist movement, and so could come to terms with its own history. And of course, this exists. This does not exist that much for the working class in the sense that we were discussing before. And even with the work of Annie Ernaux, Edouard Louis, or me, and some other writers in France and now in several countries, I'm not quite sure that we are widely read by working class people. It's amazing because when my book Retour à Reims was translated into German, it was a kind of a bomb blast in the country, because people realize that their own society is class-based, and this obvious reality has been denied by the newspapers, the politicians, and many writers, sociologists started to write autobiographies, auto-analysis, sociological essays about social classes in Germany. And I'm very happy. A newspaper even wrote, there is a nouveau genre, genre in Germany that we can call the genre Eribon. So I was very happy of that. But that means that my book suddenly awakened people. Our society is a class society. My own past, so many writers, is that I'm the son of the daughter of a working class. I was ashamed. I never talked about that, but now I will do that. So it's, but the first year of the publication of my book, I had a kind of discussion at the University of Cologne, and the sociologist told me, to deal about the issues of class is very French. In Germany, we don't have this tradition. Have you heard of Karl Marx? So it's the denial, even by a sociologist in Germany, in Cologne.
He was kicked out of Germany, of course, Karl Marx. You wrote his books in England.
In England, yes, of course. So now he can be ignored by the German. But I took back Karl Marx in his own country, and now they have. Not that I'm a Marxist, but we can still learn.
A colleague of mine called you a Marxist with a small m.
Yes, that's right. You know, the Socialist Party, when they wanted to get rid about the idea of class, of social determinism, of social inequalities, one of prominent members of the Socialist Party said, we have to get rid of our Marxist unconscious. And I realized that for me, this is exactly the contrary. If we keep something from Marxism, is the Marxist unconscious. We must keep Marx in our mind, even if we are not Marxist, even if we completely reformulate. I hate orthodoxies. So for me, Marx is not what the Stalinist tradition has made of his work. But if it wasn't the unconscious, it was le surmoi Marxist, but I don't know what to. The super ego, Marxist super ego, the Freudian term. And for me, we have to keep in mind what Karl Marx taught us. There are social classes, and we cannot think of politics, of culture, of whatever, of history, without thinking of social classes.
And I think perhaps to conclude in this part of the interview, another thing I think that Marx said, which is very much in line with your way of writing and doing philosophy, is of course that he said that that philosophers up until now have only interpreted the world differently, while the point is to change it. Right? Yes. Okay, so thanks a lot.
Which is not that easy.
No, not at all, not at all. So with that, I want to open the floor for questions from the audience. There is a microphone somewhere over here. So if you raise your hand, then I will give you your turn. And to remind you, a question is a small statement with a question mark at the end.
And the answer to without question mark, I know.
Yeah, over there.
Could you please stand up and talk into the microphone properly?
Thank you. I've heard people argue that movies or other cultural expressions, such as Parasite or the movie you liked so much, actually work against activism or anti-capitalist or socialist action, because after viewing such a thing or taking it to us, we feel like we've already done something, or and we are not so much. We already feel like we consume something anti-capitalist. So we, and I was wondering what you would think of such a thing.
Yeah. So the movies are doing the anti-capitalism for us, so that we don't have to do it anymore.
When I see a movie, I'm very happy. If it's a good movie, or for example, those by Ken Loach or some other Parasite. How do you pronounce
Parasite?
Parasite. Yeah. Sorry, I lost my English. Your city is gorgeous, but it's a little bit cold. I'm sorry. I lost my voice with my English, and I would say that. Maybe we must not expect that too much from what artists try to do, and they do their best to demonstrate, to show, to put under our eyes realities we don't know, or we know only vaguely. We cannot expect them to transform the situation. And as I said, when I see a movie by Ken Loach, for example, when after having seen that movie, I feel like infuriated. I feel like going to a demonstration. I feel like writing an op-ed in the newspaper. Everybody must see that movie. And I would say they are not. We must, if we consider that having seen those movies, means that we don't have to do anything because they did that in their movie. It's our fault. It's not their fault. And maybe we have to reverse. They try to do what they can do with through the medium of their art, painting, literature, philosophy, or cinema, or whatever. They do their best to participate in the action through their art. But they are artists, of course, and it's up to us to take what they did and to use that in our activism, in our reflection, in our writings, in our PhDs or whatever.
By the way, one another reading tip is by Edouard Louis and Ken Loach, a dialogue on art and politics. I think it's also available in English, but in any case, it's also available in English
and in French.
Further questions? I see here in the front, and then there's one in the back.
Yes, hello. I will try to be brief, but first of all, thank you for your work. I kind of identify as a class migrant myself, culturally at least, and I could relate a lot. So I will try to be a bit provocative, and I will also touch upon art and education, or like your comments on it. And you mentioned this example of the opera, and that like only the elites somehow go to the opera, and that's a bad thing according to you, because it everyone should go there somehow. And I want to say that no, not everyone should go there. Why? Because opera is like a product of bourgeois consciousness. And anyway, going to the opera is an individual strategy of being incorporated in the system, of experiencing social mobility. And it can be co-opted. while the real working class of today, the banlieues, produce their own form of art, right? Like they have like trap, they have like other forms of art that somehow probably best captures their interests and their political consciousness. So like, why is it necessary that this kind of like high art is a good thing in itself? Or like also with cinema, like the Parasites or the Triangle of Sadness, like it's highly celebrated, wins Palme d'Or and so on, but it is like, again, like individual consumption and individual strategy, or like something like that. Like, aren't collective strategies like rejecting opera and coming for something else better or something like that?
I did not say that people have to go to the opera. I said that when I try to reinvent myself as belonging to the intellectual milieu, to the cultural milieu, which is not the milieu of the the upper class, because there is a upper class in France, very rich, very rich, and the intellectual milieu are people who can live quietly with the money they earn, but they are not very rich people. Annie Ernaux was not that rich. She was a high school teacher. I think she is richer now than she was until last year. But I don't say that people. I just remark. I just describe who is going to the opera, and I said only people belonging to the bourgeoisie. Who is going to the theater? People belonging to the bourgeoisie. The cinema is different, but people don't see the same. It's tricky because you think people go to see movies in cinemas, but they don't see the same movies, so it's not exactly the same. You can go to a concert if you go to the festival Aix-en-Provence to attend a performance of Wagner's an opera by Wagner. If you go to the Metallica concert, these are people attending concerts, but these are not the same the same level of culture in terms of what Pierre Bourdieu called legitimate culture, which means that distinction. If you say, I'm going to see to attend a concert of hard rock, you will not be considered someone very educated, having a very sophisticated culture. If you say, I'm going to Aix-en-Provence at the festival to attend a performance of an opera by Wagner, you will enter the box of the cultural elite. So the distinction between the level is not because some do like that, some do like other things. There is an objective hierarchy, and you cannot ignore that to go to a hard rock concert or to go to a prestigious opera festival in Beirut or in Aix-en-Provence or Munich and so on. It's not the same the same meaning of attending a concert, because objectively, socially, in the mind of everybody, there is a difference, and this difference is la distinction. But of course, I don't tell people you should go to the opera because if they don't like, if they don't want, I never give normative statement. You should do. But what I say is that you can see how art functions as a tool of distinction, of social distinction, and which means of social hierarchization and of social belonging. You said that, you mentioned the class system which reproduces itself through the school system, education, and so on. And it reproduces itself also through art. What kind of art you like put you in a box, and these boxes are differentiated in terms of social hierarchies.
But I guess part of your point would also be that then if we want to look for class consciousness in art, we should actually not look to films as Parasite or Ken Loach, but rather to indeed trap music or other genres. So that is, I think, a different question. But very good point. I think there was in the back a question. And then over there.
Oh, yes, hi. So I thought it was very interesting just now when you brought up... I thought it was interesting just now when you brought up the anecdote about... Oh, that's me. When you brought up the anecdote about the opera house where they were opening it to kids and only children of bourgeoisie children would end up going. So that kind of like made me think a bit. And my question would be, if, let's say as a society, we have decided that we want to get rid of restrictions on bourgeoisie art and we want to make it as accessible as possible to everyone, how as a society would we even want to go about that? And if we were to go on that endeavor, would the working class actually want to be able to participate in bourgeoisie art?
I think through education. This is one point very interesting, more than interesting, in Bourdieu's book, La Distinction. He said, why is that you can see in the statistics that the younger people who goes to the museum, to the concert hall, to exhibitions and so on, are the ones who succeed better in who attend higher education. They are the same one, and you could think it's because education teaches her to like art, but art is not taught in the French education school system. So there is a link between those who succeed in the school system and those who like art. And very strange link, because there is nothing which relates the school system to l'amour de l'art, to love art. And the explanation by Bourdieu is very simple. It's because those who succeed in the educational system and those who like art, who are the same, are the same people, because they are the same children of the bourgeoisie. And to be child of the bourgeoisie means you to succeed in the school system and to like art. So here it's you can see how art and to love art is also one of the aspects of distinction and of the reproduction of social classes. That does not mean you have to get rid of art to stop loving art. I do love art, but I know that I describe in my book, I was in Retour à Reims, I was attending, a performance at the opera, Paris Opera, and I see how I saw all people who are there, the smile, they are so happy of being what they are, to be here, to belong to those privileged society who attend performances at the Paris Opera, or opera everywhere in the world. And you can see here, it's not only the love of opera, of art, it's the love of oneself as belonging to this very, very, very sophisticated part of humanity who likes opera.
So they would actually stop loving opera if everyone would like it?
Yes, yes. If everyone likes it, they will not be interested in going there, because the privilege is also that you are a few people who do like that, and if everybody does like that, you lose your privilege and you lose your distinction. To the art is l'amour de l'art, to love art is essentially based on social distinction, and of course there are some resistance when some institution, elite institution, decide to open to try to open their doors to a new audience, which does not work, as I mentioned before. But there are always people. But no, we don't want to have everybody in the concert hall. They don't like that music. They don't know. You know, when you listen to a symphony in a concert hall, between the movement, after each movement of a symphony, there is the first movement. So the conductor stops, and the audience who knows how to behave don't applaud after the first movement, after the second movement.
If you do, people are very angry.
And if you applaud, people shh, shh, shh. And there was on Twitter 2 years or 3 years ago someone who said, I was yesterday at the Philharmonie of Paris. People started applauding after each movement. Can you make an announcement before the concert to ask people not to applaud after the movements and the reply of the I don't know, man or woman who managed the Twitter account of the Philharmonie de Paris simply no. And it started a discussion. There was even an article in the newspapers about this discussion. Who is entitled to be there? Who is entitled to be considered as a legitimate attendant of the concert? Are these concerts only for people who know that you don't applaud after a movement, or can we open to people who don't know how, but who are very happy to be here and to applaud after a movement because they enjoyed it? And it was a very interesting discussion between the old-fashioned privileged people defending stupidly but publicly, it was not a private discussion, publicly what they consider as their privilege, how to behave correctly and decently in a concert hall, and the other one, we are the barbarians who applaud between, which is a kind of crimes, one unforgivable crime to applaud between the movement of a symphony.
I think there's room for one final question. Is that okay, Nina?
Just one.
Yeah. A short one.
Sure.
Yes, thank you for being here. I wanted to ask if, do you think that we will forever be stuck living with classes? And if not, is the way to change this to go to vote, or maybe art? I don't know.
How to break the class system.
I just saw that Wilders won the elections, by the way. Maybe that changes your...
I don't think I do think that we are stuck in the class system for still a long time. The social classes will not disappear. Even if we wanted them to disappear, if we want them to disappear, they will not disappear because the society is grounded on this class structure. What we can do is to try to undo the privileges, for example, economic privileges, to help people who are the most precarious, the poorest, those who, for example, to give people the right to retire the earliest as possible. And as we know, all of us, it's not what our governments are trying to do. On the contrary, we had in France 1 year of demonstrations violently repressed by Macron's riot police in order to defend the pension system. Because here, this is a class violence, that if you are 60, 65, after having been a worker in a factory, it's not exactly the same if you are 50, 65, 70, if you were an academic, a writer, and so on. So the class system we will not suppress the social classes. What we can do is to fight to lessen the effect of the violence of class system. For example, through the rights for workers, the right for the unemployed, the right for the elderly, and so on. And unfortunately, you ask, are you anti-capitalist? I am anti-capitalist, anti-neoliberalism, because we can see what neoliberalism and capitalism do to our lives, and especially to the lives of the most precarious, the poorest people in our society. So we have to fight for that, to demonstrate for the right to retire early, to get a decent salary, to have rights to vacations, holidays, and so on. So all that is what we can do. To suppress class, I'm afraid we can't, but there are something we can do. And I went to demonstrations against the reform of the pension system in France, with Edouard Louis, with friends, with hundreds of thousands of people, asphyxiated by the tear gas, the clouds of tear gas, scared by the violence of the riot police every day, everywhere during the demonstration. Incredible violence, because French society is the French police is very violent, and this violence is organized by the politicians who are in power today. Macron is an authoritarian, violent politician. What I can do, I do. I go to demonstration. I help. I gave money to people on strike, and they will not live with the money I gave, of course. But if hundreds of thousands of people who can do that give money to people on strike, they will be on strike longer, and they will fight easier. So there are something we can do, and I try to do with my friends. I went with Annie Ernaux at the Gare Montparnasse in Paris to support the train drivers who were on strike, and we made pictures with them. We talked with them and to support their strikes, their actions, and their resistance to the demolition of the social security, social protection, social pensions, and so on. This is what we can do.
Okay, thanks, and I hope that you will also continue to write your beautiful books, because that is also definitely something that you have already contributed to this class consciousness and class struggle, which of course is a long way to go, especially if what Nina just said is right. I guess because of that news, we can all use a drink right now. Before closing, I would like to point out to one event that is going to happen tomorrow. Lisbeth Kortos-Altes, who is a professor emeritus of literary studies at this university and also one of the founders, actually, of our program, Arts, Culture and Media Studies, will give a talk tomorrow on the book by Mohamed Mbougar Sarr. In Dutch it's titled De diepst verborgen herinnering van de mens. It won the Prix Concours, and it's a beautiful book. That is going to happen in the Offerhauszaal. It's in the series Spraakmakende Boeken. And I would definitely recommend you to go there. Then finally, thanks to Julian for your introduction. Thanks to Studium Generale. Thanks to the program Arts, Culture and Media Studies. And obviously, lots of thanks and a warm round of applause for you, Mr. Didier.
Warm. Thank you. Thank you.
You wanted to add something, right?
Sorry?
You wanted to add something?
No. Warm applause. Thank you, everybody.
Verwendet wieder.